so different. Good morning, good morning, good morning, my We Are Not So Different family. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. This morning's guest I have, and I should have checked first. I know it's Margot. Is it Zaher?
It's Zaher, but close.
Okay.
It's no worries, hard to pronounce.
All right. Well, we have Miss Margot with us this morning. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. She is, as an empowered and relationship coach, helps women break free of unhealthy patterns, shift fear into confidence, yes, and reclaim their power so they can manifest their dreams, dream lives, and relationships. Margot, who holds a master's in psychology for everyone who wants to know her pedigree, is a certified professional coach, hypnotherapist, and EMDR facilitator. She's helped hundreds of women over the last 20 years, people, 20 years, to reclaim their power in their lives and intimate relationships. She's the author of the Amazon bestseller, The Golden Cage, From Entrapment to Empowerment, where she guides readers through a step-by-step approach to identify and break free of life's cages, including relationship ones. After going from being stuck in troubled relationships to manifesting her soulmate, she uses her personal experiences to help women create greater intimacy, connection, and trust in their relationships. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Miss Margot.
Thank you for such a great introduction. I'm
You're so
happy
welcome.
to be here.
Thank you so much for your time. I that's one thing I really genuinely appreciate about anyone who comes to my store. I know there's like a million things that you could be doing, but I really appreciate you taking the time to come and chill with We Are Not So Different and the family. So let me do a little house cleaning before you get started. Y'all know the drill. Find your favorite spot on the couch. Get your favorite drink, whether that is Kool-Aid or Cavassier, and relax as you tune into this conversation. Miss Margot, my guests get the same two questions. So we're just going to jump right in, right? Number one, if you had the undivided attention of an audience of your choosing, who would said audience be and what would you tell them?
Well, that's a great question. I love it.
Good.
Puts me right on the spot to really think. So one of the things that I think the audience would be women in relationship with a beloved, and also in a couple. Both couples could be there. I mean, couples. And what I would say to them is life is too short to stay in a relationship that's not supporting you, energizing you, bringing you beauty and love and glory. I was just really tapping into the other day how either a relationship can be a drain of your energy or it can be a gain and an enhancer of your energy and your entire world. Like it can enliven you, bring creativity, and strengthen your health and well-being. So my opinion is life is way too short to stay in a relationship that doesn't work for you. And it's not just about leaving it, it's about really working and looking at how can I make this relationship even better and more beautiful and connecting. And I just think that we don't need to settle for mediocrity or just being okay. That let's just take everything to a higher level. And that's what I would love to say is not just your life, your relationship, but also your life, take it to a higher level, one where you can really shine and be yourself and love every moment of being alive, because life is too short for settling for less.
Yes, look, we ain't in church, but I'm ready to pass the offering plate because everything you said was the truth. Life is too short and we don't have to settle for mediocrity. Like, okay, so this is a part B to that question, which I probably shouldn't, we'll get into later. But what I want to know is how do we go from that place of mediocrity to that excellence or that extraordinary? But we get into that later. But
okay,
that's exactly where my mind went, like, oh yes, please, how? Okay, and then question number 2, If you had the opportunity to speak to a younger version of yourself, let's say 4 or 5-year-old Margot, what do you think she would need to hear?
Well, I would definitely say to her that fear is a normal part of life. Fear is something that everybody experiences, and don't let fear stop you. Instead, take fear by the hand, befriend fear, and walk through life with it side by side. Don't let it be the driver, the pilot, or the leader. But it's okay if fear goes along for the ride, as long as you're the one in charge, and to know that it's a natural part about being alive. In fact, it signals that you're just stepping out of your comfort zone into a new place where you can grow and evolve even more. So fear is okay, natural, and it's not something to block you or stop you in your growth. Because I let fear stop me for a while in different places in my life, I have to admit. And that's what I talk about in the Golden Cage. Some of that entrapment that came from allowing fear to build a cage around myself. Anyway, that's what I would say to my
I like that, because like a lot of the times, and I don't know if this is what you're referencing, if not, great, but I'm going there because I was raised in the church, and I know a lot of times they say, fear means that there's a lack of faith. And I think that's not necessarily true. Like, everyone is going to be afraid of something. It is, like you said, it's a natural part of life. Now, what maybe maybe I didn't hear, maybe they should have explained better, that when you allow fear to control you, and you allow fear, like you said, to be in the driver's seat and dictate your actions and your thought pattern, that might signal a lack of faith. But the presence of fear itself, it's natural, and everyone is going to experience it. If they're telling you that they never had them, they're lying.
Definitely.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
and thank goodness we have fear, because at least the physical fear, we don't want to jump in front of a truck or run up to a lion or a bear, right?
Right.
We need some fear to preserve ourselves. And also, though, I really believe that fear is very enriching for many people, that if you could really go into it and really feel what's in it, there's actually a lot of beauty and grace in it. It's very close to the energy of excitement, actually. I've been told that I love this quote, but I cannot remember who told me. The difference between fear and excitement is breathing. And then in fear, people are holding their breath. But if you can move into the breath, you can actually move into more of the excitement of going into the unknown, into exploring what is. And really more embracing that fear allows it to bubble up and shift more into the excited levels versus the fear levels. That they're really kind of on a spectrum almost. It's an interesting concept.
Okay. I like that. I like that very much. Okay. So little Miss 4 or 5-year-old Margot. Well, now we're just gonna talk to the adult persons, the littles and the adults and anyone in between. Fear is okay. It's normal to experience that emotion. Just don't let it take the driver's seat. Don't let it
Right.
take the wheel. Awesome.
Right.
So I want to jump into all the juicy tidbits. I want to use the majority of this brief hour, and it's going to go by so fast. I want to use this brief period to be able to get all the tips and advice and perspective shifts and anything else that may be of value to anyone listening and or viewing this podcast. But you did mention the Golden Cage. So I want you to give my listeners and audience, I'm going to just say audience, my audience, a little backstory about, what the book is about, what prompted it, the whole process, the Golden Cage, and what it means.
Okay. So basically what happened to me in this experience was that I realized through the writing of this book that I was trapped in my life in various what I call golden cages. So basically it's about on the outside, your experience. And in this book, I really go deep, for instance, into my relationship golden cage. So I was married in my first marriage. I had built this beautiful cage. It looked gorgeous from the outside. So it was gilded in gold, and everybody was like, oh, you've got the perfect relationship. You have a business together. We had 17,000 followers, and that was like 20 years ago. who were like, admiring us and all these things that we were doing together as a couple. We had a business together. So it looked gorgeous from the outside, but really inside I felt completely trapped. And I was allowing fear to hold me back from really showing up 100% in the relationship, because I could feel that I almost had to pretend for it to be okay to be in the relationship. I had to pretend to be stronger than I was and different than I was, because there wasn't this acceptance and love of who I truly was. So I was morphing myself. So the Golden Cage is really about my experience. It's really half autobiography about my experience of being in the Golden Cage and it falling apart on me, my marriage basically blowing up on me, because I was trying to save the marriage and figure out how to get closer and get the kind of connection I wanted. My partner fell in love with another woman and tried to bring her into a relationship in various ways. So it became very complex and very, like, a lot of crazy stuff started going down. So basically, though, what I discovered through this experience was noticing, like, wow, I have actually been in this cage. And being able to recognize the signs of the cage and then going through a step-by-step process to free myself from the cage. This is a relationship cage. I also talk about a career cage that I was also in. Again, the same beautiful external world where everybody was jealous of me. And the step-by-step process of really getting strong, finding my wings and flying free to follow my heart's calling. So basically the opposite of being in the cage is really stepping fully into your heart's calling and what you really want to do in the world or experience, be it a relationship or a career.
Wow. The Golden Cage. I love how you explain that, because when you think of gold, you think beauty, you think like financial, like even like prominence, but then cage. So the two words kind of like they're like clashing with one another. And you have this whole experience where you were basically what everyone wanted to be, or what they saw or perceived, but at the same time here you are on the inside trapped in a cage. So
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes you don't really realize you're in it for quite a while, because the really important thing to realize, it's important never to beat yourself up if you discover you're in a golden cage, because at the beginning, this might have been really good for you. It might have been what you really wanted. Your heart might have been in alignment, but as you grow and evolve, it could become more and more, those bars can start forming out of fear because you don't continue to evolve where your heart would like for you to evolve. You start holding back because that fear, is building those bars. And so you may start out in a relationship or in a career that does work, but then over time it becomes like a cage.
wow. So you had a business with your partner, your ex. Were you okay? So you've been doing this for 20 years. So that means was that part of the business that you were doing with your ex?
Yeah, so I started coaching back, in the year in about 2000 is when I discovered coaching and became certified. And yes, we had an online business doing basically supporting people and creating and manifesting their dreams. I would say it was a manifesting work. And but prior to that, I'd had this experience of working in Paris. I had this, that's what the amazing job was, with working for Procter & Gamble and brand management in Paris. Everybody was super jealous of that. And also I found myself in this cage. It took a lot of courage for me to break free of it, because I hated the job. Honestly, it wasn't for me at all. I wanted to do, my heart kept saying, go help people. You need to contribute to the world. And who really cares about detergent anyway? Because I was basically trying to sell more detergent. So I was feeling extremely like, why am I doing this? But I was so afraid to let go of that comfort zone, to let go of the financial security. And especially because I had so much external validation that, like, you should be happier. This is one of the best careers you could have, right? So it takes a lot sometimes, especially when you have that external validation, to be like, okay, I need to listen to my heart. What is my heart really telling me? What's my truth? And part of the first step of getting out of your golden cage is actually to be really clear of what your heart really wants. What does your heart want you to do? Where is your vision, your true vision, if you could do anything and fly free? And a lot of people don't know that. They just know that they're stuck to begin with.
I can only imagine the fear that we spoke of earlier. So you're in this quote unquote perfect relationship. and you have this mass following, and you guys are literally experts in manifesting like what you
I
want.
know.
And then to have to turn around and say, this is me, and this perfect facade that y'all see, it's not what it is. And then have the courage. I can only imagine the pressures. I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, like, this is exactly what I'm telling everyone else to do, to be, to get to, but at the same time, here I am. So to have to cross that bridge or that divide or that gate, like, I can only imagine.
Yeah, well, and I didn't really realize that I was in a golden cage till many years later. So it's hard to explain. Like I was, I was trying to hang on to like dear life, like hang on to the cage, hang on to the cage. And honestly, what really happened, which is really interesting, is that I called in a catalyst. I believe that this other woman was a woman I called in because there was a moment I remember, and I go through in my book, where I actually, asked the universe, I said, God, hey, I need help. I got to get myself out of here. This is so not okay. I don't feel good. I don't feel like myself. And hallelujah, I called her in. And so I was, of course, unhappy and upset about it. But as I evolved and grew and learned from that and did the grieving process, I got like, wow, I asked for this. And then there was a lot of gratitude that happened. Like, I'm very grateful that the entire thing unwound and that relationship fell apart because it wasn't who I was. I was not happy and I was not being met. And it wasn't my ideal partner. He was not my ideal partner. I was having to, morph to be in the relationship, basically.
So, and you said that before, I was having to morph. So when I think of morph, I think of changing. I think of projecting an image that everyone else can see to protect the real, the natural, the vulnerable, the one that's not quite
Mm-hmm.
ready to be. And that seems like a lot. It seems like a lot of energy. It seems like a lot of time. It seems like a lot of preparation that you had to do just to put this, for lack of a better word, front out.
Yeah. Yeah. I was unfortunately pretty focused on maintaining things and holding them together and trying to make things work by me being, showing up in certain ways. And so it became very exhausting for me. And I just tried a lot of methods, but it was what led me into wanting to do relationship work. Obviously, when my relationship started falling apart, I was like, oh, I better learn everything there is to learn about relationship, right? To see if I can save the marriage. And because I'm a very loyal, dedicated person, I think it's also that.
So how long was it? Like, okay, what if I can kind of ask for a timeline? This is what you're realizing. Okay, now this is where I am. I'm thinking I want to do something else, to actually the unraveling of the, was it like a quick, I just want to, I'm
Well,
like a slow, like,
the beginning, so let's say, so in basically in the beginning of 2006, certain things transpired where I realized that things were not okay. Like our relationship was not supporting me. And I was like, I'm giving up way too much of myself and I'm feeling really unhappy and uncomfortable. And that's when I had this moment of like, I call it calling in grace. Like, okay, I need help. And I had been doing a lot of like spiritual growth. And at the end of that year was when the other woman arrived on the scene and things started unraveling. So that was fairly fast, and it took about a year of unraveling where there was a lot of going back and forth and me trying to save the marriage. And then finally, really thinking like, well, I guess we're moving on. It's best thing to do is to, go get a divorce. And but during that process, and then I think it was really for me, then there's another full year of really intense grief then that hits. So after the divorce, there's a year of like trying to save things where there's a lot of anger and frustration and like doing, starting to do some deep inner work. Like it threw me into even deeper inner work, right? Because the rug had been like pulled from under my feet. I had to really look at like, what am I doing? What's my role? What are my games in relationship? Why am I so desperate to hang on to this relationship? And then, so I talk about facing fear in my book. Then my fear of being alone really started showing up. Like that desperate, like, I don't want to be alone. It's better to be with somebody than nobody kind of energy. But I would say then there was about another full year of really kind of intense grieving until I got to a place where the gratitude started being more apparent. I would say a couple of years later, even more apparent. But it wasn't in writing this book, and this is in 2018, years later, that I feel like I came full circle and really got a deep appreciation and understanding of the entire process and how it unfolded. I think writing a book is one of the best ways of really growing, evolving, and getting an entire kind of energetic picture of what's unfolded and being able to sort of then let go of it. Like you feel complete when you've actually written a book sometimes about something intense that's happened. Like it's a way of processing in one way. Anyway, that's been my experience.
So you talked about intense grieving, the grieving process that you went through. And I'll say, and I've learned this from doing podcasts with like different professionals and stuff, a lot of people don't know how to grieve. So if you can, for just a quick second, what did that grieving process look like? What did you have to allow yourself to do? Or what did you have to run after and attack? Like, what did that process look like for you?
I love your questions. You're so spot on. So, well, here's what I did, and I think is very important, is kind of like, I believe that grieving involves a number of kind of processes in it. One is what I call the emptying out. Like it's really important to be able to feel all the emotions that are truly there. All that sadness, especially the loss of all those dreams and what was hoping, right? The connection. Yeah. So what I did was I purposely every day did something to really focus on emptying out that energy that was in me. So I did this like almost daily for a year. And one of so I had two practices that I used the most. One was walking with my dog, and walking is a very healing thing. I don't know if you know that, but from like EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing, by the way. And okay. It's the idea is that you tap into the right and left hemispheres of your brain. When you walk, the touch does the right and left hemispheres of your brain. And what's interesting is it accesses like emotions that are kind of stuck in the reptilian part of your brain. So when you walk, you're actually accessing stuff and allowing it to process. That's why most people, when they talk about pacing, like you're pacing, when you're kind of upset and stuff, it helps kind of soothe and bring emotions out and start clearing things that are kind of stuck in your energy field by pacing. It's very, in one way, almost comforting for people, but also brings stuff up. And it's not something to do a lot on your own unless you get some help if it's really intense. But what I was doing was walking and then allowing myself to feel the energy of like, okay, what's in there? And I would just let myself cry as I walked. Basically, I walked around my neighborhood and just let the tears come. If the tears were there, I would let them come. And I really focused on doing this process of really actively seeing my ex and like looking at him as I was grieving and saying, thank you. I let this go. I forgive you. I let this go. And I just kept saying simple words like that would bring up some of the grief, but in a gentle way. And I would do that daily. And then sometimes I would do I call emotional release journaling, and it's in my book. But it's basically just writing with the emotion and the energy. You just keep writing. You never look at what you're writing. You're just actually letting the pen move. And you allow yourself to basically put the energy into the pen on the paper. And then at the end, you don't read it. You basically burn it or shred it. And then you say, I let this go. And so doing that kind of thing is another way that I was able to process some of this on my own. And the third part of grieving, I think is really important for me, was my own self-forgiveness. There's a lot of having to forgive myself that came up because I honestly had this thing about like, well, why did you stay so long? Or why did you even marry him? Or like, there was a lot of that like questioning.
Yeah.
And me having to really go and say, okay, having dialogues, like you met, seeing myself, because I've done a lot of this experience with clients. I can do it with myself quite a bit, seeing the younger you and having these dialogues like, okay, let's have a conversation about this. Let's really empty out the emotions and the feelings and dialogue until there's a completion, and then do a little self-forgiveness process around it. So it's kind of complex to go in fully how that works, but that's kind of the idea behind it.
But the point was you were intentional.
I was very intentional because what I realized was that if I would embrace the grieving process, embrace that, then it would pass through me and not linger as long, in my opinion. Now, I believe grieving is a different natural process for everybody. Sometimes it takes years, sometimes it
Sure.
takes months. It depends who you are. So there's no reason to speed up grieving, really. But I'm just saying, intention, I do believe it helps the process move along. One way of looking at it.
I agree. So I don't know, and this is probably going to be weird, or maybe I'm giving too much information, but whatever, y'all family, right? So I used to do this thing when I was younger. Like if I got like a hangnail or whatever, I specifically like remember on my fingers, and I would do this thing where I would like squeeze the pain out. Like if I could get all the pain out now, then it won't hurt later. And I would actually like have my brother, hey, come squeeze my finger, not pull my finger, squeeze my finger, so that way like it'll squeeze all the pain out. So kind of like what you were saying, let's get all the pain out so that way the healing process will come quicker. So I get that.
Yeah, beautiful idea and way to use that kind of analogy, because I think our biggest challenge in our life, in our culture, we haven't been trained. We have very little training on how to handle our emotions. And when we bottle up emotions and keep them inside, they actually can fester and come out at the wrong time and come out in ways that really harm other people and and sabotage us and our relationships. So being really conscious of really working with our emotions and how to sort of process them through, I think is a really important skill for people to learn. I'm really passionate about that. And one of the things that I've discovered is that a lot of people don't let themselves feel the intensity of the grief because they're afraid they're going to fall apart, right? They're afraid that they won't be able to handle it. And when I actually have people go into the intensity of that emotion, they discover that if you just stay with the raw, pure emotion intensity, the feeling, what that emotion, that feeling is like in your body, the texture, the color, what it wants to say, without getting trapped in the story, it actually moves through you quite quickly, like the waves of an ocean. Literally within minutes, you're like, whoa, I feel so much calmer about that. And so we spend all this time trying to push stuff away, but if we can actually bring it in and allow it to move through us, it's amazing how easy it actually does that.
Wow. Okay. So another thing you said once you went through, the divorce, and you want to make sure that you learn everything about relationships and stuff like that. So I want to take this time for you to help my audience, like if they're in a spot like that, I don't know, in whatever spot that is, baby girl or baby boy, you're going to be just fine. I can promise you this. Keep on living. That's what my mom used to say. Keep on living, baby. I promise you, you're going to be just fine. But
Oh, I like that.
so there's a part in particular. I was stalking your webpage. I stalk all my guests in a
Oh,
good way,
good.
not in
Glad to
an
hear.
unhealthy way. So specifically, empower communication practices for couples, diffusing anger and conflict resolution, and communicating your unsaid truths to your partner. I know that sounds like a lot, but I think I know. And even if you just want to tackle a piece of that, then I
Okay.
think any piece of that, because I think that it's so important. First of all, communication. Without it, you're dead in the water. Bottom line. And that's with any relationship, an intimate one, a work one, a platonic one. Without communication, you're dead in the water. So I'll say it again. Empower communication practices for couples, diffusing anger and conflict resolution, and communicating your unsaid truths to your partner. Grab one of those and go for what you know. What can you help? Like, what can you give my audience that
Yeah.
will help?
I mean, I could definitely do a couple hours seminars on those because I do. I do a lot of teachings. But let's definitely dive into, because I think it's helpful to really look at the empowered conversation part, because it's used for diffusing anger, and it can also be used for at least part of it for unsaid truths. I'm not sure if I can cover both of them, but we'll dive right in.
Yeah.
So let's take a situation, much easier just to have a situation. Like, I want to sort of set the stage for this. So let's imagine that you're in a difficult conversation with your partner, like they've brought up, so here's one looking at it. They brought up something that is difficult for you to hear, that you don't want to hear, that or it's a whole topic that you try to avoid, maybe even like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. We always seem to get in an argument about it, right? So that's when we really want to look at the empowered communication skills, is specifically around what I call difficult conversations, ones that make you uncomfortable. So the first thing, I'm going to take it as one person in the partnership because it's a lot easier to describe. So let's imagine that we're talking about the person who's on the receiving end. Somebody says something to you like, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe that you didn't take out the trash, or that you forgot to pick up the kids, or that you were 15 minutes late, whatever. So there's a little bit of a kind of a jabbing energy, and your body's a little like, whoa, what went on there? Like, that's the time when we need to think, okay, how do I have an empowered conversation versus turning into a fight? Because unfortunately, that's the moment when we can go into unconscious behavior that can create conflict, which we're trying to avoid in this way of operating. Because unfortunately, I think conflict and fighting are the number one reasons that people grow more distant and more disconnected in a relationship, right? So let's start at the beginning. So the first important thing is, and this is something you mispractice a little bit to begin with, is it's important to be able to first center yourself. And what I mean by that is to take some deep breaths and imagine that you are a tree, that you are rooted. What we're trying to do is get you into your body. If you're too much up here in your mind with all these thoughts, what ends up happening is that you start saying things super quickly that you really regret you said, like your energy's spinning. And so first we want to try to get like collecting your energy, really. Some people call collecting your thoughts, but really it's more like bring your energy into your body. So I tell my clients, imagine you're a tree. And this is a really good thing to practice because you get more grounded in who you are and what your truth is when you're a tree versus just being reactive. So what we're wanting to change is a pattern of being reactive to a pattern of being more proactive with your energy. And this takes some skill.
Okay.
So that's the first thing. You ground yourself before you say a word. The second thing you do, if at all possible, and this is challenging for humans, really challenging, is that you start what I call the validation process. So you want to validate what your partner's saying. And this does not mean you're agreeing with your partner. Agreeing and validating are completely different things. Okay. Validate just means what they're saying is what they're saying. It doesn't mean that you agree or think it's true or don't think it's true. And so most people, when they're in a situation like this, somebody tells them something and they don't want to hear that, or they're like, oh, I'm being slightly blamed. They push back and they're just like, well, that's not true at all. I can't believe you said that. And it starts this blame cycle. It already started probably with the other person, but it goes back and forth and starts the volley of blame going back and forth, right? So instead, you go and you switch to validation. This is I think the most empowered tool I've ever used in my existence of conversation is validating. Because what you do is you say to the person who's said something to you or seems to be upset at you, it could just be upset. Hey, it's really easy. Hey, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that makes sense. I get it. And you just start doing that. And you do it quite a few times. What they might start saying things, you just keep like, yeah, I get it. And you're not pushing back. You're not trying to get them to change your energy. You're just like matching a little bit with like, yeah, I get you. It makes total sense. And Andrea, I'm going to tell you a story that will really highlight the power of validation. Okay. I think it's so powerful. So one day, many moons ago, I had just learned this technique, by the way, at the time. So it was top of mind. And I was driving down the road and I was tailgating the person in front of me. He was going 25 and a 45 and I was on him like, why aren't you speeding up, right? And he got really mad and slammed on the brakes and I ran into him. And so I pulled over to the side of the road and he gets out and he is like built like a football player, like just ginormous. And he is mad. He is so enraged at me. And so he's coming over and he starts pounding on the top of my car with his fist of his like this, like on the top of my car. Yelling at me, saying, I can't believe you ran into me, all this stuff. And I had been practicing validation because I had learned it in a skill in a workshop. And I said to him, yeah, I totally get why you're so mad. Yeah, that makes total sense. Of course you're mad at me. I just hate you. Yeah, I totally get it. I just kept saying that over and over as he was like pounding, like, you stupid woman. He was just like really angry. I know I'm like laughing, but it was really scary.
I can only imagine. I'm like, oh my gosh.
And I just kept saying, you know what? I totally get you. I totally get you. And that's why I just kept validating. And after about, I mean, this took a while, 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm not saying, and normally in situations, you guys who's listening, probably won't be to this extreme. I'm giving you an example. And I don't want you to put endanger yourself, but this was an experience of kind of an extreme of how it can work. In about 10 to 15 minutes, he said, and maybe it was only 10, he said, wow, I've really had a bad day. And he just sort of looked at me like everything changed. All of a sudden, all that fuel of anger had left because I had never pushed back. I had never given him any more fuel for the fire. He was just like, oh, she's not doing anything, saying anything. And then and there was this real, like, he just sort of stopped. And he turned around and went back to his car. There had been no damage. We'd been barely moving, honestly. It was just like a bumpers had hit each other. So, and the man in back of me came up just to finish, and he came up and he said to me, there's a man who had pulled over and he had been parked there. He'd been about to call the police, and he said that he was scared and he didn't know what to do. And he had come up and said, I can't believe how well you handled that. And I said, you just need to learn how to validate people, and it would change the world. So that's an extreme example, but it does work in regular, just day-to-day energy when you're feeling like somebody's pushing against you or upset at you.
I have so many questions. I'm like, because I'm trying to imagine like this huge man beating on my car. So he literally 10 minutes. That's a long time, man.
Well, maybe 5. It was a long time. Maybe it was only 5.
It felt like forever to you. Like
it did. So that's the power of validation. I mean, in action, it was really crazy and amazing. But I really believe that if you can just do one thing, if you take one thing from this, is how to start validating anybody you meet who's starting to get upset at you, because you'll diffuse the energy quickly. Because where you want to go is you want to diffuse the energy that's about to ignite. Because think about this. It's like when you're in a conflictual experience, it's like a fire has ignited. Well, you don't want to put more fuel on the fire by pushing back and getting upset and blaming and saying, I can't believe you did this, because then more fire is happening. And I always think to myself, okay, let's calm the fire down first. And then you go into speaking your truth. This is not about you never speaking what you need to say, because it's very important in a empowered conversation is that you come from the place of this is my truth. So, but it cannot be heard. Your truth will never be heard if you don't first calm the flames of the fire down. Because if not, your truth just gets engulfed in this like fire, like it doesn't work. So you've got to get the thing calm. And it may take a little practice. So calming the energy. And then when it feels like there's been a shift, what happens is there's often a shift. Like all of a sudden the person will be like, oh, okay. Like there's something calms down. People start calming down. Now, if you've had ongoing fights about this, there could be a lot in that. And I might need to like help you individually a little, but that is how it works. Eventually it does calm down. And then you use the word and. So you want to continue validating. Let's imagine you say a sentence like, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. And so then you use the word and, never use the word but. If you use the word but, you negate everything. And of course, people know this, but I'm reminding you. Then you want to speak your truth from the I place and how you are feeling. And it's about you and not about them. So for instance, you can say something like, if they said to you, like, you know, I can't believe that you did so, whatever. You said, oh, you know, if it's true, you can apologize. You can say, yeah, I guess I misunderstood. I thought this was what was happening instead. But the point is to speak with an I statement and to be as clear and direct as possible in your statement and not to go into a story. So for a lot of couples, I actually template this out and I say, if you've had an issue going on for a while, let's write out your empowered conversation so you know what to say about your truth. Because if you go on and on about like, yeah, this happened 2 weeks ago and that happened a month ago and this happened, you get the entire point of what you're trying to make gets all lost in story, when really it's important to just be very focused on what is your truth? What is it that you actually need to say? And there's a part of the conversation that can also go to what is it that you actually need from your partner, which is something very important. Is if we don't speak our needs, then we don't get them met. So there's also a place then to start speaking your need, and depending on where you are in this conversation, but like, you know, this is my truth and I need da 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 da. So hopefully I'm not going too fast. But there's another step in this then is very important after you speak your truth, is for you to prepare for your partner's response. This is another one of those key moments in a conversation, because your partner may not say what you want your partner to say, unfortunately. That's bad news. But if we're prepared for the response, it tends to go a lot better. And what I mean by prepared is there are basically two things that you can do that work really well. One is you can kind of get yourself, especially if you're templating a conversation and doing what I call prep, you can get yourself prepared mentally for what they're going to say that you're not going to like. If you already think to yourself, they're going to probably say X, Y, Z, and I'm not going to like it, at least you've already prepared yourself mentally for like the worst case scenario. And I really do believe it helps. But two, and more importantly in that moment, is what I call shielding. I really believe that energetically, if we take everything on without being kind of careful of our energy field, we can actually feel like we got shot by energy, like, whoa, that's too much. I don't know how to handle it. We don't know how to handle it. So I just say, you know, just imagine just a little bubble around yourself. If you're nervous that the response might be strong or intense and not what you want to hear, you can just send back some of the energy that you may not like. You can just look at the words bounce off, so they don't need to impact you and trigger you. Because one of the key things that I work with couples on is working with triggers. And an emotional trigger, right, is a sensitivity that you have because of the past, things that have happened to you. And so these are opportunities in difficult conversations where things you could get triggered. And so I could go on and go on about that whole trigger thing. But one of the points is if you can kind of shield yourself energetically and imagine it bouncing off, that helps to kind of keep things from being as triggered. And the second part of that I love to do, that I practiced a lot in my relationships with specifically my ex-husband, this is where I learned it, is that I say a mantra to myself, words over and over that I find really affirming, that help me stay more centered. So I'm like, okay, I know he's about to say something and I may not like it. Margot, I love who you are. I love what you said. That's your truth. It's just your truth. It's your truth. It's okay that you're saying this. I love who you are. I love you. I love you. Whatever it is, I find words that feel really soothing. And I just keep saying this to myself as I'm preparing to hear the response, so that my force field, my energetic field, is kind of built up stronger to receive whatever and not be as triggered if someone says something I don't want to hear.
So this is what you were saying to yourself, like, Margot, I love you. Like, that's what you were saying to yourself. Okay.
It's all about self. This is really most of my protocols and my methods that I teach have a lot to do with self-empowerment. That's why I call myself an empowerment and relationship coach, because I believe that we have so much power to shift our energy, and that's the only person we can really shift and have control over.
You can't control what nobody else say, but you can control how you respond to what they say. So I get that. Yes. Ooh, I like the part that I'm taking mental notes. Normally I have my notebook with me, but I don't. Shame on me. But I like the part about the validating. And I think I'm going to experiment with that going forward. And I will be happy to report to see how it went. But I definitely, that sounds like something that I can, like, a tool that I can grab onto right now and implement into my everyday, like, living. So
yeah, try it out. Let me know what you think. And remember, the validation comes like each time somebody says something to you that you don't quite agree with, or even in general, you can use it more than once in a conversation. You kind of it's rinse and repeat. You go back to validating again in the conversation, right? So you constantly are going into validation, and then you speak your truths. You prepare for the response, kind of like that. That's like how an empowered conversation can go. You're holding your power as the other person is speaking. And there's this thing called, can I just say one more thing about the dynamic here, is that you're shifting a dynamic, what I call the dance. So in relationships, we are in a dance.
Okay.
Okay, I love to dance. I'm a salsa dancer, and anyway, I dance a ton. And this was first coined, because I do want to give her credit, in the book called The Dance of Anger by Harriet Goldhart Learner.
Anger.
It's an amazing book, and it's like 25 years old. So you can find it everywhere. It's a bestseller. But back then, I learned this a long time ago, and it's probably one of the best nuggets. And I take it into my teachings and my coaching with people. But you are in a dance with your partner, right? So you have one dance move, they have another dance move that they're used to responding. You have a dance move, they have a dance move. Well, the problem is, if you have dance moves around conflict that aren't working, they're ending up in fights or distancing or things that don't feel good, you have an unhealthy dance going on. The good news is that you can change your dance. And by doing the validation, by doing this technique, what you're doing is you're changing your dance. You're like, hey, I'm going to validate now instead of getting upset. A new dance move has come along, right?
Okay.
Well, the thing that happens that's very interesting is your partner will start feeling weird using old dance moves, because they'll kind of start tripping on their feet. Like, what happened here? This doesn't feel like the normal dance. And so they actually start feeling uncomfortable. Now, the first thing that happens, according to the Dance of Anger book, which I've seen over and over with my life and my clients, is there's called a change back period. She coined that phrase. Change back. So basically your partner's like, I don't like this new dance. I want you to change back. And so you are then they push back, and you have to stay strong. I'm like, no, I'm validating. That's my new way of being. I'm just validating. I'm no more fire on, fuel on the fire. And you just start your new dance, and you keep doing it. If you do it long enough, the majority of people actually start shifting theirs too. They're like, okay, well, she's not changing. I guess this new dance is better anyway. And they eventually have it. So a lot of people can make relationships changes based on them being very conscious of their own dance move. And of course, it's great if you can have conversations with your partner and both of you try to change your dance at the same time. But I'm saying I've noticed it's very impactful when you change your dance move. That's the thing that you can change, right? You have control over yourself and what you do.
I like it. And it makes sense. That's what one of the things, I'm simple. I don't need like a whole lot. That makes sense. And when stuff makes sense, the simplicity of a matter, I feel like that's something that I can add to my little tool bag, and that's something that I can start like right away. So yes. I have like 1,000,001 more questions, but I know there's no way. There's absolutely no way. And I'm gonna share with y'all in hopes that this will prompt you to go stalk her website as well, which don't worry. I will let her give y'all all the goods about where she can be found and all that good stuff. But some other stuff that I wanted to talk about, like healing unhealthy relationship patterns, how to move from judging your partner to accepting him or her, and the blame shame cycle and how to end it. These are topics. Stuff like this is what you're going to find on her website. And this is what she specializes in, ladies and gentlemen. And I really wish we had more time. But I often ask this question, and I'm going to ask you as well. Do you ever think about well, I guess you do, because at the beginning you said that you had to find out what was good for your heart, what was your heart's desire, what was your heart's call, and you were like, I gotta get into helping people, which I think is lovely. God bless your heart. But my question was, that kind of surrounds that, is, do you ever sit back and think about how much you're impacting lives, and not just the lives of your clients, but the lives that are in your clients' circles, relationships, like family, because one person change, it's like a domino effect or ripple effect or whatever effect you wanna. But do you ever sit up and think about it like I'm having this impact on the lives of potentially countless people because of the work that I do?
Well, I love that, Andrea. I mean, I don't know if I think about it to the ripple level that that you just reminded me of. I mean, obviously, I've often had this thought, like, okay, you know, I'm thrilled that I can make the world better by one person at a time. But then, of course, that one person impacts, you know,
Yeah.
other people, and so it's like, you know, this whole domino effect, like you said. And and I think that's also just important for us to all remember. Of course, everybody's impacting people positively or negatively as we go through every day, right? Like all of these beautiful stories about how, you know, people say, oh, that one smile, that I just needed that one smile to get me through that day. You know, I didn't know if I wanted to still be alive. So we don't know how our energy helps other people. And in my opinion, is one of the things that's, you know, helped me the most is just to be like, all I can do is do my best, put it out there, and come from a place of, like, you know, integrity and really caring, and then hope that that continues to improve the lives of others around me, because I really want to live in a world. One of my missions is about living in a world where we have more beautiful, empowered relationships, because I really believe the relationships is key to us creating the kind of happiness and connections and peace that we all really truly want, because our world is built on relationships. And
Yes.
so it's kind of fundamental for me.
I love that. Hold on one second. I'm sorry, beautiful people. But as I was telling Miss Margot earlier, these Georgia allergies is something else. It's different. And I didn't want to be like all like, you know. Anyway, thank you for that. So then I will ask now, do you have any upcoming projects or anything coming down the pipeline that we need to know about? And if not, cool. If do, feel free to share. Once you finish that, I want you to use this time to shame yourself. I'm not shame yourself. Plug yourself shamelessly. Give us your website addresses. Give us your social media handles. All that good stuff. Where can my people find you?
Okay, well, thank you so much. Well, what I'm really, really excited about is I'm bringing a program out that's not even available yet. I'm actually finishing a short, doing a short book on it that I will be selling in various ways. About the basically, it's a methodology to ignite connections. I'm calling it the Ignite Connection method that I'm using, and really kind of helping people be able to just to read a book to get a better idea of, like, what are the 4 steps to really, you know, use this method. And what specifically one of the shortcuts that I talk about in the book and that I really love, and this is opening a huge door, so we don't have time for it, but I'm also use the tool called the Enneagram, which is basically a typing method to support people very quickly in relationship, finding out what their core triggers are, their core needs in relationship, their core fears, and what their partners are, and how they work together. And so this program is built also on that methodology. And I'm super excited that I've been doing now some really amazing deep couples work by using this tool called the Enneagram. It's just a really amazing shortcut. It cuts right to the chase, and we don't have to spend a lot of time asking questions. By me knowing where they fall on this Enneagram. Ennea stands for 9, and gram stands for, it's a diagram. So it's an ancient system, basically, that where there's 9 different ways of being in the world, and core behavior drives 9 different sort of things that drive your motivation, your way of operating, showing up in the world. When you can figure out which one of the 9 you are, then it's a very empowered moment, because then you really have the keys to opening the door to more awareness about why you're behaving certain ways. Why are you sabotaging yourself? What are your motivations? And this is very helpful in relationships. So that's what I'm about.
Amazing. That sounds like another, so like the love language, I swear by it. If you know your partner's love language, you know your love language, you understand better. But it also, on a deeper level, if you know their triggers, if you know their fears, if you know what motivates them or demotivates them or whatever, like that's, anytime you can get to know your partner and or yourself better, it's a win. It's a win.
Yeah, it's a huge one. So I'm doing these, I'm calling them Enneagram relationship coaching sessions, packages, where each of the couple, they're typed, And then basically we work together so that they can see through the lens of this methodology very quickly their triggers, their fears, their needs, and how to support each other. And then finally they all got like, it's amazing how fast they get like, oh, no wonder my partner was behaving that way. I just thought they were crazy. And so the level of compassion and understanding that emerges is really beautiful and touching for me. So that's one of the newest things that I haven't even got to my website, because I've been, I'm officially now, becoming an Enneagram coach, certified as an Enneagram coach. I've known this technique for like 2003, I discovered it, but I just got a whole new level of training where I can do this in about, 90 minutes, one person, to get them really squared away, typed, and know what's going on with them. It's awesome.
Wow. That sounds like amazing.
Well, that'll be on my website.
We love, we are not so different. We love exclusives. So it's like, you guys heard it here first. It'll be on her website later, but it was here first.
Right. You got an exclusive. And I even got it up there because I've been so busy doing it. I have challenges updating my website. I'm just like working, coaching. So the other thing is, if you're interested in the Golden Cage, that is on Amazon and that is available. The Golden Cage, From Entrapment to Empowerment. Everybody says it's a fast read, very interesting. I don't know if you've been able to read it, Andrea, but I definitely want you to read it and get your feedback. But anyway, it's a fast read, but with lots of practical tools in there. There's a chapter about my life and then a chapter about what to do in your life to apply it. And my website is my name, margotzaher.com, just as you see it written here, but it's MARGOT, Z as in zebra, AHER.com. And I have one other little gift for the listeners that I think goes very well with what we have been discussing today. And it is what I call my 8 steps to diffuse your partner's anger. It's a report that you can have for free. And if you go to downloadangerreport.com, you can download that and get 8 powerful steps to use with your partner. So that's first of many freebies that will be on my website.
Yes, we love freebies. Give it to us one more time, because I want to make sure they get it. I want to make sure, and maybe I'll have to add it to the link on my YouTube or something. But yeah.
Yes, do that. I'll send it to you.
Yes.
It's downloadangerreports.com.
Ooh, we love it.
Easy to do.
Yes. Oh,
and lots of 8 steps to use and practice, and it talks about validation in there. So it's something they can take away.
I love that. Anything, like I said, I'm really simple. Anything that I can understand, grasp, and then add to my tool belt that I could use right now, implement real time, count me in, sign me up. So my gosh, thank you so much. I told you that hour was going to fly by real fast.
It did.
Yes, but I appreciate, because I know that you're a doctor and that, you probably have a jargon or a vocabulary that is, maybe slightly elevated, but I love the fact that you were able to meet us where we were and give us tidbits, like I said, that are like for right now usage. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm not a doctor, by the way, but that's okay. I just have a master's, not a PhD yet.
Well, maybe in the future, maybe that's
just wanted to make sure I'm not there. But I like to make things really simple. I believe that simplicity really counts.
It really does. It really does matter, because then you could talk to anybody.
Right.
Anybody. So thank you very much. And also thank you for your time. And thank you for coming to visit with We Are Not So Different and giving us freebies and giving us good tips and giving us exclusives and all that good stuff. Thank you, Miss Margot.
You were so much fun. Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure. Okay, my We Are Not So Different family. Thank y'all for tuning in. I hope that y'all got all the good tips and all the gold nuggets that you were supposed to get out of this. And if not, hit that rewind and your replay button and listen to it again. Until next week, I want y'all to do something nice for yourself because you deserve it. Peace. We are not so different.